Hey.
Hey, there's going to be a couple of seconds of me at the start of this recording, so you might want to edit those out.
That's all right. Oh, no, don't worry. There always is. These are the highlights. Hey, Jav. Cool. Hey, everyone. So let's get started. To switch things up a little bit, this week we'll do the kind of demo and discussion bits up front, and then afterwards we can do the admin next steps and blockers. So if anyone wants to drop off, they can do. So Jav, over to you.
Just 1 second, getting the agenda up. On to the discussion. So let's do the discussion first, if you don't mind. I just wanted to get some things out of the way with regard to this Nginx bypass and just highlight what our discussion so far. And
before you go on, Jav, is that the right issue, 149?
Possibly not. Let me see.
Nope.
Nope. Sorry about that.
Different discussion if not.
Deployer rollback. How did that? Maybe I like lopped off a number or something. Yeah, I lopped off a number.
Okay, cool.
So like, yeah. Oh, thanks, Maren. You're fixing it? I'm not going to touch it. Thank you. I'll share my screen just to kind of like go through this quickly. So we're proposing bypassing Nginx and going to start doing this for WebSockets with the hope that we can do this for other backends as well. The reason that we want to do this is just to reduce complexity and also to kind of deal with some availability issues that we've seen around the Nginx controller and cycling those pods. We do have draining configured for the Nginx controller in the config, but it doesn't seem to work very well, especially for these long-lived HTTPS connections. So we're just hoping this helps with that. We're also just spending a lot of money on the Nginx controller because in order to prevent cycling, we just decided to over provision them. So we set the resource requests very high so that we're not scaling them as traffic comes in and out. That just helps with, because we noticed that there were some errors when we were scaling up and down. So we just decided, okay, let's over provision this with the intention that maybe we'll get rid of the Nginx controller soon. So I sketched out what the current request path looks like from your web browser or from your Git client to Workhorse. You can see we go through a lot of hops. We go through Cloudflare, external LB, to HA proxy, to the internal LB, which is layer 4, to Nginx, to Workhorse. This is essentially the same with the proposed topology, except that we eliminate the Nginx controller. The concerns that I have and the reason why I created this issue was to get feedback on, what is Nginx doing and is it okay if we remove it? There's some discussion in the notes. Just feel free to read them, and if you have additional comments, just add. There's also the security aspect here is that we are HTTPS all the way up to the Nginx controller, and instead, if we remove that, we'll be HTTPS up until HA proxy. And this means that I don't think the internal LB, I don't think really counts because it's a pass-through layer 4. But so we're going HTTP from HA proxy to Workhorse, where before we were going HTTP from Nginx controller to Workhorse. This kind of led me to think, like, why don't we support TLS for Workhorse? And I didn't see an issue open for that, so I opened it. I don't know if this has been discussed before. I think we haven't discussed it to date because we use a local socket as the omnibus default to talk from Nginx to Workhorse. So this has just never been something that's been brought up. With Cloud Native, it's no longer the case that we use a local socket. the default chart configuration with the Nginx ingress is to use network. So I think this is something that we may want to consider. I'm not sure, like, it doesn't seem like it would be too difficult to implement. You know, if we just use a self-signed certificate, and it might be beneficial for others. So, you know, just something to consider.
But isn't, so this is the traffic that workers would be handling, right?
Yeah.
So the reason why that's not a thing is because we have Nginx to handle that for us, so we don't have to write our own code to handle that specific thing. That has been the original discussion when this got implemented in Omnibus.
Yeah, and we use a local socket on Omnibus, which is what we do on VMs. But with Cloud Native, this is no longer the case.
Yeah, so I wonder, I mean, go to the Workhorse channel and read the topic, what it is. It's Nginx wannabe. So
yeah,
that's pretty much it, right? Like, we didn't build out these type of things, mostly because Workhorse was supposed to be very simple, very non-smart component that just kind of routes the traffic without thinking about all the bells and whistles. That was, what, 5 years ago? And now it's doing a bit more than Jakob originally wanted. But it's worth discussing with the team that is dedicated to Workhorse.
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw this out there because obviously there's loads of other places where we're building TLS, and I'm a bit of a stuck record on this, but I would much rather we used a single component to do that TLS everywhere. And the one that I'm always banging on about is Console Connect. I don't really care what it is, but as long as it's the same everywhere, so that we don't have 200 different ways that we configure TLS. And I will stick a link into a spiel that I wrote on that into the agenda.
Of course you did. And thanks for doing that, Andrew.
That's my job, is to spiel.
Yes. Well, not that part, but no, to raise these concerns.
And that would run as like a sidecar then, Andrew?
Yeah, and it's doing what I guess it's doing what Nginx is doing, but all it's doing is the TLS bit of it. So yeah, I suppose in a way you're trying to simplify things, and I'm talking about. But the reason why I like it is that it's the same sidecar that we're running there and on Gitly, and Redis as well. So we don't need another thing for Redis, and then another. Everything's got its own TLS mechanism. We just rather go with one, but I understand that you've got deadlines that you're trying to get to, and that might not be the might not be the quickest route.
I'm not too familiar with service meshes, but would something like Istio also handle TLS for us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be
Istio
another.
or what's the thing underneath Istio? That thing. Yeah, they do that as well. I mean, Console Connect is just the reason why I've kind of tended for that is, from what I can see, Istio is much more focused on Kubernetes, and Console Connect is kind of, it can be in Kubernetes, but it's also equally at home outside. But just
the point is, the question I guess becomes, Prefect will need TLS termination as well, right? And Gitly.
That's right.
And Workhorse and all of them. So basically, this is a new layer that it feels like we outgrew Nginx for what it was doing originally for Workhorse. So it's a good discussion to drive.
Gitly already supports TLS. It's just that we don't have it turned on.
Let's not go there.
That's kind of my point, right? It's because it's its own custom mechanism. It's not being used, right? Whereas if it was,
And the reason why it's not being used is because we attempted to roll it out multiple times, and then multiple times we find bugs. So we go back and forth, which makes it yet another one of these reasons why we shouldn't build our own.
Yeah, and also like the way that people really want to do this is with mutual TLS. And if you're going down that route and you're building all that yourself, like you don't want to be looking after that, because that all those client certificates and making sure nothing expires. And so having like someone like Istio or Console who's thought about it in a good way, and it's built on vaults and everything is probably better.
If you want to get bonus points for streaming the latest popular thing, then go with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the problem with it.
Yeah. We can then go and say, well, we are using service meshes, we are smart. But Jar, for your purpose here, what kind of feedback you're expecting from this group specifically? I mean, obviously, this is already useful feedback, I guess, but like for this specific task.
Yeah, if you could scan, I pulled the entire Nginx generated configuration from staging on the Nginx controller pod, and just kind of scan this to kind of see if there's anything that stands out that, like, you know, if we remove this, we may run into problems. That's the discussion that we have here in the notes. One thing that came out of this, and I haven't dug into this too deeply yet, but you know, we set some annotations on the Nginx ingress controller. One is, like, for example, we set the client max body size to 0, which disables it, means like an infinite size. But yet when I look at the Nginx configuration, I see client max body size set to 1 megabyte, which is really strange. Maybe Scarbeck, if you can double check me on this. It also just doesn't jibe with the fact that I'm able to push, because like as soon as I saw this, I got really paranoid and I was like, am I able to push a large file over Git HTTPS? And I tried that and it worked fine. So I don't understand that. Another thing is that we have an annotation that turns off proxy request buffering. This was an issue from a while back. We set this annotation in, you can see here, Nginx ingress proxy request buffering off. And sure enough, it's set to on there. Is this like a version issue with our ancient Nginx ingress? Like, I don't know, like, is it just not supporting these annotations? I haven't dug into it, but you know, this is part of the reason why I'm going to be happy if we get rid of Nginx ingress, because there's just like a lot of config here that's kind of hard to reason about.
Yeah, some of them got added as an emergency thing.
Yeah.
Years ago.
Yeah. So as far as the feedback I've gotten so far, it seems like Jakob is fine. Like, he thinks it's a good idea for Git HTTP, because we go out of our way to turn off all of these Nginx features anyway. So it's a good thing to do for Git HTTP and WebSockets. For API and web, we're going to have to do a little bit more analysis to see whether it causes any issue. The request buffering is done in multiple places now. Like, we have it done at Nginx and at Cloudflare. So I'm hoping that all the buffering we need to do is done at the Cloudflare level. So removing Nginx won't make a difference even for web and API.
So is there a way for you to, I'm looking at the settings that are there, and there are not too many of them, which would mean that if there is a way to actually see what kind of behavior they actually end up changing, or you know, like what system of elimination, right? Like, go through that and see like what it actually does. And like I said, a lot of these settings were added in an emergency, or because someone requested it somewhere because it broke something years ago. It might be really hard to now track it down. It might be possible. And I could go through my items, because I'm certain half of these have blame on me, in Omnibus specifically. So I can try and track some of these downs and connect the issues. But in the meantime, you can also like check out.
That's a good idea. For example, like, I don't think gzip compression matters, especially for Git HTTPS. So we could just turn that off on the Nginx ingress. We have, for web and API, we have gzip turned on Cloudflare anyway. So I don't anticipate any issue there, but we could start just like, you know, turning these features off.
Wasn't that a security item? Go ahead.
Sorry, gzip. If we're doing the gzip at Cloudflare, is that not going to have a cost implication?
For bandwidth?
Yeah, to Cloudflare.
Yeah, I think we can turn it on.
Potentially a latency just because we've got to send more traffic to Cloudflare.
Yeah, I think I mentioned this, and I think what we can do is HA proxy supports gzip in recent versions, and I think our version, so we can turn it on there. So everything north of HA proxy and everything south of HA proxy is in the same zone, so
yeah,
we don't worry about bandwidth. So that's the direction I think we can take.
Okay.
Cool. Yeah, so if you have comments on that or ideas, please add them to the issue.
Are we still, so this sounds like it possibly is a slightly bigger thing. So not to take away from, we definitely want to do it, but is it still, so for a couple of weeks ago, we discussed about upgrading Nginx versus bypassing.
Yeah.
Are we beyond that decision? Like, are we definitely want to go ahead with the bypass, or are these like separate things now?
I think I'm feeling good about the bypass for WebSockets and Git HTTPS still. I don't know, like maybe I think we were putting off the Nginx controller upgrade because it's a high touch operation that requires us to go cluster by cluster. And if we could get rid of the Nginx controller for Git HTTPS and WebSockets, then we can just like, you know, move forward without having to do it cluster by cluster. So I don't know. Maybe revisit this decision on Monday to see like where we think we are, and if we're feeling like this is going to drag on another week, then we make plans to upgrade the Nginx controller. Because I don't like where we are, because right now we're not on charts master, we're on our own fork because of this, and I don't want to stay like that for another week if we can avoid it.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
That sound good?
I'm not to say necessarily that we have to upgrade it. I was just asking based on conversations we had the other week where we were now. So yeah, let's check in early next week and make a decision.
Okay.
Hey, Jeff, another question about this. How do we ensure that whatever people do in charts to change the settings there actually ends up propagating to our own environments? Because I know the developers will likely go through the regular process, which means submit MR in wherever, and then omnibus and then charts to change certain settings. How do we ensure that actually ends up on our plate?
Well,
right now we implicitly get it, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, I mean, Nginx is fairly stable. It doesn't see many changes. Right?
Yeah, but it'll happen once, right? Like it's enough for it to happen once for us to have a problem. So I'm not trying to block on this. It's maybe just yet another one of items to add to this list to think about and get the distribution team to give you some ideas. I'm absolutely fine if it ends up becoming a part of a process rather than increasing technical complexity, but I'd like you to chat about that with distribution.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, they definitely should be involved in this conversation. I think Jason, and he said he has a to-do to kind of look through this as well. So yeah, let's bring them into it. Okay, for the demo, what I was hoping to demo was a working WebSockets dashboard for staging. I submitted an MR yesterday and tried to clean it up a little bit. And what I'll show is like the skeleton of the dashboard, but it's, I'm looking, Andrew, I know you're like extremely busy, but oh, so you even just walked away doing other things.
No, I'm trying towards me because it's so hot in here. Jav, I've got about 30 comments on your MR. I mean, I did them during this meeting, so.
Yeah, okay, so I need to go through them. And what I don't like is just that it's like a massive copy and paste, and maybe there's something better we can do there.
That was most of my comments.
Yeah, but so I need to go through that. I don't know if there's really much to demo, like other than I can maybe just show the the dashboard, the main dashboard as it is right now. See if I'm able, there we go, share. So yeah, we don't have any data. And what I'm gonna have to do is create artificial WebSocket traffic. And I have some ideas for how to do this. Even if it's not real WebSocket traffic, at least regular HTTPS requests to staging so that we can start seeing, because the WebSocket's backend is just Rails, so it can serve any kind of HTTPS traffic as well. So I just want to generate lots of traffic so that we can start seeing metrics before we go to prod. Andrew, since I didn't read your comments, is there any kind of like, what's the big overview of like, are we okay with generally?
Yeah, I mean, there's just going to be one SLI, which is like requests in 500s effectively, which is like not very good. We need that change in the product for the action cable metrics that everyone's fighting over. And it's kind of frustrating because it's a very small change. And so to see it going backwards and forwards about who owns it, it's just a little bit frustrating because it's actually quite a small piece of work.
What is it?
But
Can
I
you
think
share the link, please?
Job, do you have it on hand? I'll find it otherwise.
I can find. Is it the Prometheus one you mentioned? The
Yeah,
other?
that's the one.
I'll find
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Thanks.
It's the one where the memory team are saying
Someone else is owning it and someone else is saying,
yeah,
no,
and
we are not. Okay.
It's actually quite a small change. It's like, yeah. So, but it doesn't really matter. Like, I think to get going, just have requests per second and 500s and some saturation alerts as well, because you'll probably need to add a few for that. And then like, that's probably fine for now. And we can just get going with that, I think.
One thing I was having trouble with is this like massive service catalog.yaml, because I found certain fields needed to be filled out and I wasn't sure which ones were like the business thing needed to be there. And
so the problem is if you leave anything out, the validation will fail.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Maren, you once said that you were going to go and clean that up a bit. I don't know if we can lean on you a little bit to. It's just there's too many fields in there,
and it's currently on my list of abandoned work.
That's why I was sort of saying it facetiously. It's like just put in like, yeah, I think you put in TBD. Just leave it as TBD. Like,
yeah, I mean, some of these I can update, but not all.
but a lot of them.
Yeah, the amount of things in there that are for existing services that are now wrong, that were right at the time, are now wrong because nobody's ever updated them. I don't think TBD is necessarily the worst thing in the world for right now.
Exactly, like better to have that than the wrong information, right?
Like, what are we doing with scalability bound CPU, scalable horizontal? Does that have?
Just if you can leave it out, just
okay.
Leave it out. Yeah, I mean, they don't make any sense a lot. And I said this at the time when this was done. You know, I made, you know, I'm not changing my mind here. Like it was so overbuilt.
Why for compliance, or is this all Maren's fault?
No, it was Amar took it on as a project, and he had these big plans.
Oh, right, Amar, I remember this. Yeah.
And I told him at the time, this is too much, and he disagreed, and you know,
and left.
Yeah,
and left us to deal with this. Okay.
Yeah,
that's good to know.
Blaming the guy who left. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's all I got. Skarbek, what do you have?
Hi. I'm just going to walk everyone through what I've been trying to work on for the last like 9 years in attempting to resolve a issue that Maren opened. I'm just going to share my screen. I'm just going to show you the same stuff that Jarv is eventually going to review and tell me, John, you need to fix X, Y, and Z. So if I could figure out how to share my, if Zoom has been doing weird things since I upgraded. So if you guys see something weird, just let me know.
My Zoom sharing is stopped.
You don't see my screen?
No, sorry, carry on.
Okay.
We see your screen.
Okay, so I'm not going to show you the diff. I linked it all there so you can see everything there. But the important thing is that the goal here is that we need to figure out how to try to cache our dependencies such that we aren't rebuilding them for every single time we do a diff and every single time we do a deploy. So I'm using our CI caching strategy. So in this particular case, I created a small script that builds a cache. All it does is clone our chart, inserts a random file that I could use to validate the cache, and then creates the package of our Helm chart, which includes all of our dependencies from the get-go. And then I leveraged the caching feature of GitLab CI to rock it in here. So there's probably some things I could clean up in here, but this is what a CI job looks like when it's building the cache. If I retry that job because the cache already exists, the script is smart enough to be like, I don't need to redo this, so I'm just going to not do it. And I think GitLab will still recache it based on this message, but I'm not entirely sure. Maybe one of you could correct me on that information, because I really don't want the cache job to run at all if it exists, but I don't see a way to disable that capability. And there's no API call I can make to say, is this cache with this key available to us? So I don't know. But the key point here is that during a deploy, in this case, this is a dry run, but we downloaded a chart, so it has all of our dependencies baked into it. So there's nothing we need to do here. And more importantly, we don't see stuff like this, such as adding our Kubernetes chart or adding various chart dependencies inside of these statements here, which is where those dependencies get added when Helm file runs. My strategy or approach to doing this is not entirely complete. I've essentially broken our ability to run local development right now, and I need to figure out how to sort that out. There's also a problem where you have to specify a version with our chart when you package it. I don't know what version to specify, so I chose 0.0.0. So we will forever live on 0.0.0 if we live like that, or if we accept this change as is. I don't know what implications that may have.
Hey,
but
real quick, Scarbeck. Don't we have a version? No, continue sharing, please. Don't we have a version inside of the pipeline itself?
Well, the version inside of our pipeline is going to be the desired version that we would like to use, which is going to reference a SHA most likely.
Yeah.
It's not going to represent the chart version that we utilize, and I don't want to go that route because that may be out of date and may be a cause for confusion. And since a SHA is not a Semver, I cannot use that as a version flag.
But let's real quick for a sec. Semver would never matter in our case because we are running SHA always. So you will always see the diff anyway, right? So that's on its own is not a problem. It's just a tiny bit confusing that it's 0.0.0. So I'm afraid that someone else is going to get really confused about it. So is there a way to just like not show 0.0.0 and show something else?
Well, the version is baked into our chart and it's utilized in our chart. That's why, I'll quickly share my screen again. That's why we see it in our diffs against pre. So if we always leave it 0.0.0, this will never show up as a diff in the future. The question that I have, and I need to raise this to the distribution team, is if there's any sort of requirement in anything that relies on that version, such as the check for various testing capabilities prior to a chart being installed, for example. Because I know we throw out lots of warnings if your GitLab version may be incompatible with the chart version, for example. I don't know if we have the same thing specifically for a chart version. But the one thing I do like about this, if we stay this and we upgrade our chart, we'll never see this again, which is wonderful because this is just garbage in my opinion, because it doesn't have any
We don't use
impact
it.
on us
Yeah.
as far as I know. But I just worry of implications regarding that. The other problem that I have currently, and I don't know how to solve this, is we sometimes deploy differing chart versions to differing environments as we test and upgrade our chart. You know, we may upgrade pre and staging before we upgrade prod. I don't know how to do that with the approach that I've taken to solve this problem. So I'm open to feedback. That's all I have for my demo.
I have one question. Why did you decide not to take the route of using an artifact instead of and use cache instead? Because what I was thinking was that with artifact you can query that through the API and we could see if there's been a change or not.
An artifact is always guaranteed, while cache is never guaranteed.
Yeah, that's that too. Yeah.
I don't have an answer for that. I think it was because to me the documentation on whether you should use a cache or should use an artifact is confusing. Based on the
That's for sure.
documentation, it made
Yeah.
it sound like artifact should be chosen, but at the same time as I was doing this, I'm like, well, maybe cache makes better sense. So I don't know.
So
I
look,
did
I
try
guess
using an artifact, but
the simple question is, do you always want to have this at your disposal? If the answer is yes, then artifact is the only way to go.
okay.
If you're okay with having cache misses, so we go outside and grab whatever we need, then cache might be good enough.
Okay.
If we went with artifacts, then how would they get updated?
Probably the same mechanism I just did here, just a different call on CI to operate a slightly different mechanism. I think the behavior is exactly the same. It's just a matter of making sure the scripts work as desired. All right, well, I will wait for Jar's review because it's currently in his hands, and we'll go from there. But that's all I've got to showcase.
Thanks for working on that. I know that it might not be the most exciting thing to do right now.
I'm sorry it's taken it 30 years to get done.
Well, wasn't 9,000? What did you say? Like, I'm
9
confused
years.
now. 9 years.
It's only
Okay,
9.
so like you're adding years to this. I don't understand what's happening.
Not 9 days, to be honest. So
it feels like 9 years, I guess.
Well, you worked several of the ones that we were all off on, so yours probably is 9 days. Yeah, thanks for showing that. Cool. Is there anything else anyone wants to demo or discuss?
I don't have anything else to demo.
No? Okay, cool. So
one question just before we continue. I didn't have the time to check either Jar or Scarbeck. What is happening with Action Cable readiness review on the side of development? Is there any movement on that? Do we need to push any of that?
I don't think there's really anything left for development that hasn't already been discussed. You know, we just have the issues that are opened as part of the readiness. I think, I think we're in a place now that if we can get through this Nginx bypass work, then we're going to start prepping the change issue to start turning this on slowly.
Okay. My suggestion would be give sufficient time for people to actually participate with you on that issue with the Nginx controller.
Mm-hmm.
But beginning of next week, start planning for testing various of those config options and seeing what we need to do, because I don't want us to pause this migration for a long discussion with development.
Okay.
cool. Thanks a lot. So we don't have any. Let me just go through the boards. We don't actually have any new blockers, but just prove that. Cool. So we've just got these two No great movement on those. I'm going to follow up on this one, that the feature request to trim supplement log data for Scarbeck, because there's been no movement on that one. And add generic labels is assigned to you, Scarbeck. So shout if you need help on that one.
Still a work in progress. I think I've got one more chart that I need to create a merge request for, which is conveniently the more difficult chart to deal with. But after that, this issue will remove the migration blocker label when I get our stuff merged, at least in the master. It'll be up to us to get those changes merged into our stable branch or upgrade our Helm chart to use what's on master at that point.
Cool. Okay, great. Sounds good. Anything else anyone wants to mention on blockers? Cool. So then corrective actions, we still have a few outstanding. So external repository dependencies, your one, Scarbeck. Keep up to date on all tools. We haven't made a move on that one yet. But it sounds like it'd still be useful to at least know what the tools are, and then we can start thinking about like, what do we need to do for that? So that would be a good one to pick up. We're currently blocked.
Real quick, Amy, what is the goal of that issue though? Like I'm struggling to understand it a tiny bit.
This came out of one of the corrective actions from an incident due to a deploy failure, because of a Helm 3 upgrade had not yet been completed. We blocked ourselves in deploys when Helm turned over control of a certain FQDN over to the CNCF. I want to make sure that we avoid situations like that in the future.
Well, that is nearly impossible, Scarbeck.
Oh, of course. But I just want to
So-
figure out if there's a way that we could stay more on top of upgrades so that we don't run into a situation like that. Like, it took us too long to get to the Helm 3 upgrade, in my opinion.
As someone who already had to deal with this thing inside of distribution, I'm telling you, this is a lost battle. So what you need to consider, instead of doing all, is focus on one or two tools that are the most important for us at the moment, maybe that came out of this corrective or request for this corrective action, and figure out how to fix one or two of those. Once you get that, move on until the next one and next one and next one. It's a whack-a-mole game. You will never catch it. Create the whole list.
Yeah, even as a first step, it might just be worth for us to identify like what are the tools that we most care about. So at least we have that list, right? Because then we can find a way to track that.
So what I'll do is I'll refine the issue description to cover that precise point.
I was talking to Amy about this, and I think one of the biggest takeaways from the Helm 3 upgrade was that we didn't keep on top of the Prometheus operator chart. So I would put that right at the top of the list, is that somehow bake this into our workflow process where we're looking at chart updates and keeping it regularly updated, because we jumped so many versions, and that was just a huge pain point.
That sounds like a perfect target, Jar, because that is going to pull all of the other dependencies as well, right? If they're ahead and we are not, we'll have to upgrade others, and that is slowly is going to expose others. That's a great suggestion.
Yeah, cool. Cool. Any others we want to call out from these?
I don't remember what the HPA configuration for the web service is. I'm wondering if that's a corrective action for reals or if that's just a nice to have thing.
So Java opened it. So related to an incident on HA proxy errors.
Well, yeah, this is a little bit too vague, I think, because it's really talking about being able to take other things into account other than CPU utilization, and that's sort of a bigger issue. I think we've settled, since this was open, we've settled on target average value being the right choice for us. I'll take an action to update this to kind of see what the next steps are. I'm not sure, or close it.
Cool. Okay, great. Thanks.
Do we want to discuss the revamp Kubernetes metrics item? I see that's still in planning, but has been assigned a Jarv.
Yes, so this goal of this one is to have fast, painless metrics. I'm going to paraphrase that one. It is blocked. It's blocked until we. Okay, it's blocked until we get Andrew.
So that's
the labels. Yeah, so this is like chained back. So yeah, this one I think we should, once we have the new labels in and those charts, we should probably review this one. Cool. Okay, so the only one we haven't touched on is this remove includes from CI from common, which you opened last week, Jav. So
this will be a quick one to fix. So
yeah.
I'd say leave it in here.
Yeah.
This is something we could do in like 5 or 10 minutes.
Cool. Okay, so let's pick those up as well. Great. And then linked to this is what we have in progress and coming up next. So just filter this down to Kubernetes. So blocked, we have the saturation metrics one. So in progress, we've got 6, which is pretty good. Are these the right 6 for the two of you? Cool. And then
I hope they're the right ones.
Great. And then we need to fix up this ready column. So what's going to be the next tasks that you'll be picking up, Jav?
I think after the WebSockets work is done, I expect that this will go through most of next week. I think the next plan will probably be for either I'll hop on some of the stuff that like maybe help Scarbeck out, depending on how things are going with the Helm chart work, or I'll pick up readiness for API. I think that'd probably be the next thing.
Okay. So we've got on the board, we've got the migrate WebSocket traffic from existing location. There's probably other WebSocket issues related, I guess, that should be on the board. We've got create observability items for running the API. I'm assuming we won't be doing that soon. That's like a few weeks out, right? Cool. We've got the readiness review for the API stuff as well. We've also got this create chatops command to safely drain the zonal cluster. It's near at the bottom, but it'd be a good one to do.
I think we decided it's not a corrective action level, but or high priority, but it's something that would be nice to do. So this could be something I could pick up next week, depending on how things are looking.
Hey, Java, I have a suggestion on that one. Why not find someone from the SRE part of the org to play a bit with this? Like, we have people that like writing tools. So why not like sit down with them and like mentor them a bit on how to do this?
So we add it to Woodhouse?
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Automatically, when it opens an incident, just drain everything.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think I don't have anyone specific in mind right now, but we can think of someone that maybe.
I mean, there are a lot of people who are complaining about everything tooling wise. Might be good to give them a chance to improve it.
Yeah. Also, Amy, I forgot to mention for next week, we're doing the patch dry run. I opened up an issue for that, but it might not be in the right column.
Oh, okay, great. Cool. Yeah, that'd be good. What day is that?
I don't remember.
Thursday, I think, or
yeah, it's like it's DNA day. Yeah,
Oh,
Wednesday,
okay,
which
fine.
is
Okay, great. Okay,
Wednesday.
good. Okay, cool. Thanks. Cool. And then just related on this, I'm going to drop the Nginx upgrade issues just off this board until we make a decision on bypassing. We can bring them in if later if we want to. Skarbek, is there anything additional that you want to see on the board?
Maybe some of the corrective actions that we just discussed that we know we want to pull, but
yeah, so
I
the
think
only one
we've
that's
got enough
missing
on the
is
board at the moment.
Yes, agreed. Okay, so rough priority, we've got the dependency, repo dependency failure stuff, and we've got the bypassing Nginx, and we've got WebSockets plus corrective actions. Cool. Okay, great. Is there anything else anyone wants to discuss today?
I'm on vacation next Friday. See y'all later.
Good move. All
Next
right.
Friday being the 29th, not tomorrow. Sorry.
Awesome. All right, great. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Speak to you soon.
Thanks.